the finest in the world, will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz.
Man says a naval blockade of Iranian ports in that critical Strait of Hormuz is set to come into effect right now.
This blockade, which the chairman will detail this morning, is the polite way that this can go. Your energy is not moving and will not move.
5:40 local, Gulf of Oman. T-minus 9 minutes until impact. 10 heavyweight torpedoes. More than 5,800 sailors and aviators in the crosshairs. Every second counts. This is the story of 42 minutes that changed everything. Dawn over the eastern mouth of the Strait of Hormuz looks almost harmless. The sea is flat steel. The first light catches the island shadows and turns the water silver. Commercial traffic is already moving. Tankers, tugs, patrol craft. And at the center of that controlled chaos sits one of the most recognizable warships on Earth. USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, CVN-69, flagship of Carrier Strike Group 2, a nuclear-powered city of steel, jet fuel, radars, catapults, and American reach. She is not alone. Around her, the protective geometry is tight and deliberate. Arleigh Burke-class destroyers pushing their sonar screens outward. A guided missile cruiser holding a sector. Helicopters cycling. E-2D radar coverage overhead. Fighters ready on deck. This is not a lone carrier drifting through open water. This is a mobile fortress built layer by layer, sensor by sensor, watch team by watch team, and the geography makes every decision sharper. The Strait of Hormuz is narrow. The sea lanes are structured. Iran's coastline sits to the north, broken by coves, ports, inlets, and hardened facilities around Bandar Abbas and farther east toward Jask. The Gulf of Oman is deeper, darker, better water for bigger submarines. That matters, because in this fictional scenario, 5 Iranian boats have already slipped into the hunt. Imagine you're here. You're on the flight deck in cranials and float coat. I'm feeling the deck shiver under your boots. A jet is being towed into position. Somebody is joking into a headset. Somebody else is already on their third coffee. Normal routine, controlled noise, controlled danger. And somewhere below that calm surface, something is moving to kill the ship beneath you. The plan was simple enough to look brilliant in a briefing room. 3 Tarek-class submarines, Iran's Russian-built Kilo variants, operating in deeper water east of the choke point. 2 Fateh-class coastal submarines closer in, lower, quieter, positioned to tighten the geometry. 5 hulls, 10 torpedoes, one target that matters more than any other ship in the formation. From the Iranian perspective, the logic is brutally clear. You do not need to sink the carrier to win the headline. You do not even need to mission kill it permanently. Only one heavy torpedo hit, one burning flight deck, one list to port, one video clip spreading across the world before the smoke even clears. Insurance markets panic, oil jumps, shipping freezes, politicians shout, deterrence cracks. That is the calculation. And the submariners believe they have a narrow window. They think the Americans are watching the sky, not the water. They think the escorts are stretched between regional missile threats, drone threats, surface harassment, and flight operations. They think commercial traffic and bottom clutter will blur the acoustic picture. They think firing from multiple axes will overload the response. In their minds, this is not suicide. It is a calculated demonstration. But there's a problem with their plan. They are seeing the Carrier Strike Group as ships. The Americans are fighting as a network. But not a deck, not a hull. A living mesh of sonar, radar, acoustic libraries, data links, airborne relays, satellites, patrol aircraft, and analysts who have been training for this exact kind of undersea ambiguity for years. The fatal flaw is not their courage. It is their assumption that they are still hidden. 3 hours earlier, a P-8A Poseidon flying a maritime patrol track had dropped a sonobuoy pattern on a suspicious route east of Bandar Abbas. 90 minutes later, an MH-60R from an escort destroyer heard something it did not like. A transient, faint but wrong, metallic and deliberate. Then another cue came in from a towed array. Not proof, not yet, but enough to thicken the undersea picture. At 0531, that picture sharpens. A destroyer's Combat Information Center gets a correlation. Bearing drift, speed inconsistency, warp machinery signature. Another operator watches the lines crawl across the screen and feels that cold electrical snap of certainty. This is not merchant noise. This is not fishing clutter. This is a submarine maneuvering inside a weapon envelope. At 5:32, the strike group goes from routine to knife edge. Sonar supervisors stop sounding calm and start sounding precise. Helicopters are diverted. The carrier begins subtle course changes first, then more aggressive ones. The escorts widen and compress at the same time, each ship shifting into the place the doctrine demands. General quarters ripples through steel passageways, hatches slam, boots hammer ladders. You're there now, in the dark red light, heart pounding, hearing a voice over the circuit that gets everyone's attention in a single sentence. Possible submarine attack. Set torpedo defense condition. Could you make that mental jump fast enough? 1 second you're thinking about flight ops. The next second you're thinking about water pressure, impact angles, flood boundaries, and whether the C2 decks below you is about to come through the wall. At 5:33, the first launch is detected, then another, then 3 more. No explosion yet, no plume. Underwater warfare is cruel that way. The sky does not light up to warn you. There is only data, bearing, speed, convergence, torpedo in the water, torpedo in the water, torpedo in the water, 10 in total. The Iranian boats have committed 10 heavyweight torpedoes, fired in overlapping salvos, each one built to punch through steel, tear compartments open, rupture shafts, and turn momentum into chaos. In the control rooms of those submarines, there is probably a flash of confidence. They think the hard part is over. They think the kill chain has closed. What they don't account for is how fast a carrier strike group can become an elimination machine. The outer layer reacts first. An MH-60R Seahawk, already airborne, rolls into a sprint toward the nearest launch basket. Dipping sonar goes down. Sonobuoys spread in a widening pattern. A second helicopter joins from the opposite flank. One destroyer turns to bring its ASW suite into the cleanest water possible, while another broadcasts contact quality tracks through the network. A P-8A farther out updates the grid. The shooters are no longer hunters. They are targets with timestamps. At the same time, the carrier is not passive for a single heartbeat. Flank speed ordered. Rudder commands aggressive. Massive hull carving hard across the sea, trying to break the geometry the torpedoes were programmed to exploit. If you have never seen a carrier maneuver hard, understand this. It is less like a ship turning and more like a moving airfield deciding it refuses to die. The water erupts behind the escorts as acoustic countermeasures go live. Nixie decoys stream. Noise blooms into the sea. False targets multiply. The torpedoes are now chasing a battlefield of lies. One torpedo starts to drift toward the wrong acoustic source. Then a second. A third overshoots the anticipated carrier track because the target no longer is where the firing solution said it would be. The Americans are not trying to win elegantly. They are trying to survive in the next 5 minutes. And survival at this distance is all violence and math. And now, from the enemy's view, the picture begins to rot. The beautifully timed salvo is no longer a synchronized kill shot. It is fragmenting. Contacts are maneuvering unpredictably. Guidance assumptions are degrading. Countermeasures are polluting the water. The target group is not panicking. It is purging your options one by one. First attack on the shooters. One MH-60R gets the closest Fateh-class submarine on a firm track and drops a Mark 54 torpedo. Seconds later, a destroyer launches a VLASROC toward another contact box. You don't hear these decisions on YouTube thumbnails. You hear them in clipped voices inside combat information centers. Execute, confirm splash, hold track, re-attack. The first Fateh tries to dive away. Too late. Underwater, the detonation is a blunt, crushing fact. The sea kicks upward. Oil and debris begin to work toward the surface. One launch platform gone, but the torpedoes it fired are still out there. The nearest 2 inbound weapons are now the emergency. One is angling toward the carrier's starboard quarter. One is cutting across an escort's wake. Sailors on the bridge wings can't see them clearly, but they can feel the whole formation tightening around invisible knives. Imagine you're that helmsman, sweat in your gloves, rudder answering, thousands of lives behind you. 4 seconds can feel like an hour. The starboard side torpedo commits to a decoy. It bends off, tracking the louder lie. The other keeps coming. A Burke-class destroyer surges between the probable track and the carrier, not to absorb the hit like some movie hero, but to complicate the acoustics, to split signatures, to add more noise and force one more decision out of the weapon. That is training. That is discipline. That is what separates choreography from combat. The second torpedo breaks late, then runs wide. 3 down, functionally neutralized. 7 still in the fight. The next wave is uglier. 2 of the Tarek-class boats fired from deeper water, giving their weapons cleaner running room. These are the shots with the best geometry. the ones the planners trusted most, the ones meant to turn a carrier into a global spectacle. Instead, they run into a network that is already closing around them like a vice. An MH-60R marks a second submarine. A P-8A refines the solution. A destroyer sends another ASROC. The carrier launches additional aircraft, not because jets are going to shoot torpedoes, but because command and control, overhead coverage, and retaliation planning have already started. F/A-18SS begin to spool. An E-2D extends the picture overhead. The fight is underwater, on the surface, in the air, and inside a dozen command circuits all at once. This is the part people underestimate. Modern naval warfare is not one duel. It is stacked decisions. While one team breaks torpedo tracks, another localizes submarines, another arms aircraft, another calculates regional escalation, and another prepares damage control stations for a hit that might still come. Could you hold your nerve in that compartment? Could you keep your voice level knowing a 100,000-ton ship may live or die by the next bearing update? A second Iranian submarine is hit. This time the evidence is unmistakable. A violent bubble pulse, debris, a rapidly fading contact, somewhere in that steel cylinder. No, men who believed they were about to make history have instead met the oldest truth in naval war. Once you reveal yourself, you become mortal. But the deepest Tarik boats are still alive, and their torpedoes are still closing. One of the remaining weapons cuts through the decoy cloud and keeps a plausible line toward the carrier. This is the danger point. This is the point where exercises become obituary material if anything slips. The bridge orders another hard turn. The carrier heels. Deck crew brace, equipment shifts, coffee spills across consoles. A few sailors will later say this was the exact moment they understood how thin the line is between routine and catastrophe. The torpedo closes. Then it loses the best solution for half a breath. That is enough. It passes astern, close enough to throw a white scar through the wake, but close enough that men staring over the fantail will remember it for the rest of their lives. But it misses. Less time than your morning commute. That's how fast the difference between disaster and survival can be decided. Timeline check. Minute 9 since the first hard warning. 1 Iranian Fateh sunk. 1 additional submarine likely killed. 4 torpedoes neutralized or decoyed. 3 ran wide after evasive maneuvers. 3 still unaccounted for, with confidence. The strike group is alive, but the danger is not over. And now Washington enters the room. Confirmation flows upward fast, because it has to. Hostile submarine attack against a U.S. carrier is not a tactical incident. It is a strategic threshold. National Command Authority is briefed. CENTCOM is briefed. Naval Fleet Command already has response packages built because professionals do not invent escalation ladders in the middle of a crisis. They prepare them before dawn ever breaks. Authorization comes with cold clarity. Neutralize the attacking force, destroy the launch infrastructure that enabled the attack, and deny immediate repeat capability. Not a symbolic strike, not a warning flare, a systematic erasure of the kill chain. The counterattack begins before the last torpedo threat is fully settled. Tomahawks ripple from escort ships toward coastal command nodes, submarine support facilities, and sensor sites tied to the attack. Carrier aircraft launch in waves, F/A-18E Super Hornets for strike, EA-18G Growlers for electronic warfare, E-2D overhead for battle management. A Virginia-class submarine already ahead of the formation receives its own tasking and shifts from shadowing to hunting. The entire American response is built on one principle: never let the shooter reload. At sea, the undersea purge continues. The third confirmed submarine is caught trying to withdraw under thermal layering. Sonobuoy pattern tightens. Mark 54 away. The contact breaks apart. Another boat sprints for safer water closer to the coast, but sprinting makes noise, and noise gets you killed. The escorts don't need luck anymore. They need clean execution. Final torpedo danger resolves. The last 2 inbound weapons, both deprived of a stable target picture by countermeasures and violent maneuvering, peel into false signatures and exhaust themselves in useless arcs. 10 fired. Carrier hit count, 0. And that is the moment the emotional pressure changes. Not gone, never gone, but changed. The crew is no longer waiting to be struck. Now they are watching a machine of retaliation spooled to full power, and that retaliation is overwhelming because it is designed to be. Strike aircraft hammer pier facilities at Bandar Abbas and support points near Jask. Fuel storage, maintenance bays, communications relays, weapons handling areas, hardened entrances where possible, radar sites that fed maritime tracking are torn apart, fast attack craft pens are cratered, runways and helicopter aprons associated with rapid submarine support are rendered unusable. Every target is chosen not for spectacle, but for future capability denial. This is what modern doctrine looks like when deterrence fails. Not rage, not revenge theater. A calculated demonstration that the price of touching a carrier is not one submarine lost. It is your entire regional naval architecture being put on the table. From Tehran's view, the attack that was supposed to shake global confidence has become a live broadcast of strategic overreach. 5 submarines were committed to create shock. Instead, the decision has exposed ports, support chains, command pathways, and the vulnerability of trying to trap a carrier group without winning the information war first. By 5:52, 12 minutes after the last torpedo danger peaks, the sea battle is effectively decided. 1 Iranian boat is confirmed limping west, damaged and hunted. 3 are gone. 1 is trapped in port by follow-on strikes and blocked exits. American helicopters still prowl. Destroyers still hold sonar contact baskets. The carrier never stops moving. Aircraft keep launching. The message is unmistakable. The target you tried to cripple is still generating combat power. Think about the psychology of that. You risk 5 submarines to create one historic image. Instead, the image the world gets is a U.S. carrier still turning into the wind and still launching jets while your undersea force is being hunted to destruction. Not a battle, not a test, an execution of a bad assumption. By 06:13, 42 minutes after the first firm warning, the first solid aftermath numbers are on the boards. 5 submarines committed, 10 torpedoes launched, 0 torpedoes hit the carrier, 3 submarines destroyed at sea, 1 heavily damaged and forced to withdraw, 1 contained and effectively removed from immediate operations, multiple coastal support facilities struck. Regional naval command nodes degraded. American losses in this fictional scenario: no ships sunk, no strategic mission lost, flight operations disrupted briefly, several minor injuries from emergency maneuvering, and a handful of sailors who will never forget the sound of the general quarters alarm when it meant the ocean itself was trying to kill them. That is the military lesson here. People love to talk about the carrier as if it is just a massive target. That misses the point completely. A carrier strike group survives not because the carrier is invincible, but because it is never fighting alone and never fighting blind. The deck is only the visible part. The real power is the integration underneath it all. Sonar crews, patrol aircraft, helicopters, escorts, data links, analysts, battle managers, helmsmen, bow and commanders making hard decisions in seconds. The Iranian flaw in this fictional scenario was not lack of bravery. It was believing a salvo equals success. In modern warfare, success belongs to the side that sees first, shares fastest, adapts under pressure, and destroys not just the incoming threat but the system that produced it. Information dominance, response speed, layered defense, then overwhelming counterstrike. That is the formula. And there is a deeper warning for every Navy watching. Chokepoints still matter. Submarines still matter. Torpedoes still matter. But if you launch before you truly own the battle space, you may not be opening the fight. You may be signing the death warrant for your own force. So which decision was most critical? The early acoustic cue, the hard carrier turn, the decoy deployment, or the immediate counterattack authorization? Debate below. Hit subscribe for in-depth military breakdowns.